Games have evolved. In the 70s, 80s, and early 90s, video games in particular rose to prominence. Around 1996, the game Quake, developed by id Software, revolutionized 3D rendering from a first-person player perspective, and Valve's Half-Life, developed in 1998, revolutionized the concept of first-person narrative design, and, on that note, narrative design as a whole. Players now could not only play video games that were fun, but could immerse themselves in the stories they told much more readily. When the early 2000s went by, the stories games told became products of their respective times. The video game I'm going to be discussing is Beyond Good and Evil, released in 2003 by Ubisoft.
That reminds me of the chocolate-covered squid with kiwi sauce that my Aunt Geneva used to make.
Development for Beyond Good and Evil began after the development and release of the Rayman series, which developer Mikkel Ansel spearheaded as the project lead. The original idea for this new, ambitious project was sparked from a glitch in Rayman 2, where players could jump on top of a flying ship and observe the world from there. The dev team, and Ansel himself, wanted to capture that sense of feeling and wonder. Ansel's project goals were to make the player feel like an explorer and have an entire world they were free to roam around in while also building a meaningful story alongside that player freedom. A demo was showcased at E3 2002, which was received overwhelmingly negatively. In order to have this project ship, the developers had to change and cut out substantial parts of their work in order to make it more appealing to a broader market. Long periods of exploration were cut away, the main character received a complete rework, and the team behind all of this were demoralized. Even Ansel, the lead developer, said that the finished product felt more like a sequel than a retooling of what it originally was. The game officially released on November 11th, 2003. Reviews came in, and while the vast majority of critics seemed to enjoy it, minus a few gripes such as the gameplay feeling hollowed out, it never sold well. Thus, it was titled a commercial disappointment by game critics such as the official PlayStation US Magazine and even Ubisoft itself, who marketed the game very little. Despite the poor sales, however, Beyond Good and Evil became a cult classic among small-time gamers, myself included.
Congratulations. Information on giant snails are difficult to come by.
I didn't play the game upon release, as I was 4 years old at the time, but I found it years later when looking through my late father's collection of Xbox games. I booted it up, and immediately became enraptured by it. When I was younger, it felt like I was controlling the lead actress in a movie. The character interactions were charming, and the mechanics were simple enough for me to grasp at 7 years old. It really felt like its own living, breathing world, and it gave me a place to escape and imagine.
Olsen and Pino!
Miss Virus, don't worry, everything's just fine. I'll find a way out of here!
Now, between the ages of 7 to 12, I played this game, and because I was so young, never actually grasped what the underlying story was trying to tell me. I mean, at that age, I just wanted to take pictures of animals and drive around in the hovercraft, indiscriminately shooting passing boats, and waiting motionless with the camera out until whales breached the surface of the ocean. I didn't really know, or really care, what the alien threat lurking in the stars happened to be, or why it was there. Then, I decided to revisit it in college, at around age 20. I've grown up since then, and dug around about the inspirations of the game, and found that it really was a product of its time. In a Eurogamer interview, Ansel revealed that his main inspirations were the works of Hayao Miyazaki, politics and the media, and the September 11 attacks and aftermath, although he declined to elaborate further. As I played and kept those in mind, I began to understand more. The story takes place far in the future on a planet named Hylas, a formerly peaceful mining planet now wrapped up in a years-long interstellar war with an alien species called the Doms. You play as Jade, one of the two caretakers of orphans left in the wake of the war, and a journalist. For the first hour of playtime, we learned that a militaristic group called the Alpha Section showed up shortly before the Doms arrived and asserted themselves as the new de facto rulers and defenders of Hylas, although it seems that little to nothing positive has happened since their takeover. Alpha Section's funded propaganda plays on the radios and video screens, permeates the street talk of average citizens, and while initially seeming rather benign, the constant yammering about recruitment and slandering a mysterious group known as the Iris Network can seem a little off-putting. You eventually meet the Iris Network, who reveals themselves to be a collective of average people who operate in more than 13 different star systems, searching for answers as to why the war seems to have no end, and why the Alpha Sections seem to dominate every planet they touch. What begins to sound like conspiracy theories starts to sound much more real than the propaganda the Alphas push. The game is linear, so Jade's choice is to join the Iris Network to find out which faction is truthful. Through Jade's actions, it's revealed that the Alpha Sections and the DOMs are working together and have seemingly made a deal with one another. It turns out that the DOMs require living people to continue existing. Essentially, they consume the souls of the living to continue their existence almost perpetually. The Alpha Sections, rather than take attack victims to hospitals, traffic them to the DOM's base of operations on the planet's moon, where they get to bask in the glory of borderline eternal life in kind. So, the Alphas operate through fear, propaganda, and military prowess. Details of attacks are obfuscated to make certain the civilians remain docile and focus their ire on the Iris Network, giving our antagonists the freedom to operate unhindered. They do this because they know that civil unrest and rebellion would spell disaster for their entire operation on Hillis. Jade and the Iris Network are looking for the facts in order to cause exactly that. A few people can only do so much on their own, but give the people the truth and they will rally behind Iris. It's very much a fight the power type of story. If an oppressive regime has their boot on your neck, then fight back. Even if you fail, others will gain the courage to know why they aren't the only ones who want to resist.
Jade, come on over here, will you? I gotta tell you something important. Now may be a good time to show you my latest invention. 2 years of work under the utmost secrecy. The outcome of a life's work. My little marvels, the jet boots. They run on homemade biocarburant. Here's the pocket of pressurized methane. And here, in the soles, are the 2 turbo reactors. All you have to do to fire them up is contract your abdominal muscles. It's the transportation of the future. I'm waiting for your signal, Jade. Silicon Grenade! Hey, what the? And there you have it.
Cool.
Beyond Good and Evil is like a time capsule in the past, in more ways than one. Obviously, playing a game released in 2003 is viewing a product of the past, but the overarching story, the idea of power to the people, the world within the game feeling just as ripe with fear as our own, especially post 9/11, has left its mark in not only the history of interactive media, but the perceptions of young people like myself who have grown up to play it and note the parallels between our reality and this media. It's like Ansel's game planted a seed somewhere deep in my brain all those years ago that blossomed once I began to understand that the world is larger than just a town, and that inequality and injustice are perpetuated all across the globe. My perception in this day and age has been in part shaped by the anti-authoritarian message behind the game. I mean, I personally am very much a power to the people sort of person. If the government fails its citizens, take action into your own hands. If you discover that the facts have been obscured by propaganda, educate others. If the government steps on your neck, fight back.